thank you so much for being with us on the show today, Hank.
Absolutely.
That's a real honor to have you. Hank Thomas, you're one of the founders and general partners at Strategic
Advisor Ventures.
Yeah, thank you.
It's funny because it's like a lot of people think it's SVC because it's like SCV, but like it looks like it should be VC.
Yeah.
Strategic. So it's a mouthful.
Yeah, and I get tripped up over it, so there must be some other association it's competing with.
Yes. There's a long story there too, if we want to go into that.
Okay, Strategic Cyber Ventures. Well, let's go into the story. Let's start there.
Well, that was the origin story of the name. Like, how it is when you found something, a different kind of founder story, because founding a VC firm is not the same as like founding like a real tech company. But, just trying to find a name. We bounced around with a lot of cute names, but it was like, let's just stick to something that like legitimately says what we do.
Yeah.
Although I don't know the strategic part really makes sense. It should probably be like tactical cyber ventures,
right,
because we're not really strategic. But, soon thereafter, we discovered that when you Google SCV, which would go by like what comes up when you Google SCV is Sons of Confederate Veterans. We didn't figure that out until we had created the company.
Yeah.
So if you Google SCV, beware, because there's a giant Confederate flag. We'll show up on the website, but we're working on pushing them out of the Google search and being the dominant player in the SCV market.
Awesome. Yeah, that's funny. The story's funny because last year we put together a CTF, Capture the Flag, and we're looking for names. And we're like, Defend the Flag. That sounds like such an awesome name. And then we Googled it and we're like, nope.
I don't even want to.
It's some weird associations there. Yeah. I'm always interested in how people got their start in technology and then ultimately found their way into cybersecurity. How did that journey start for you?
Well, I was a political science major in college, and I was in ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps, to go into the military. I had a scholarship for ROTC, and I got branched into the Military Intelligence Corps, so like straight out of college. And, for this was 1997 because I'm old, and pre 9/11, so I went into like the tactical army as a tactical intelligence officer, sort of in between the Cold War and the post 9/11 years, where the army was kind of lost and didn't really know who the bad guy was.
Yeah.
And I did electronic warfare and intelligence, and then 9/11 hit. And after 9/11, I was at the Army Intelligence School. I was supposed to be going to Hawaii to do more tactical intelligence stuff. And I got reassigned to NSA to essentially help stand up the Army's first fully deployable, offensive side of the unit that embedded itself in special operations and things like that, or at least attempted to. That's what the thought was. So it was the precursor to what is now the cyber command in the U.S. military.
Okay, so cyber operations like deployed forward towards conflict in helping in that.
Like taking NSA national level assets and like pushing them as far forward to the edge as possible.
Oh, that's cool stuff.
And then also like a lot of, hey, do we drop a 500-pound bomb on it or do we cyber it? And they'd be like, hey, cyber dork, what do we do? And can you do it too? And we'd be like, well, maybe. And then they'd be like, all right, let's just bomb it. But now that's matured. That was early. That was 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005. And some of it was electronic warfare, some of it was cyber. Now a lot more of it is cyber. But that's how I got into it.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, it's such an interesting space too. I was just talking with somebody the other day too, how like they were saying, cyber's almost certainly a part of every modern conflict now. And I would say almost every modern conflict starts with cyber now.
Yeah.
Like that's what we see in Ukraine and these different theaters is, they start with some kind of attack to sort of get everybody off their balance and then come in with the kinetic stuff.
Yeah. I mean, intelligence preparation of the battlefield, like figuring out where everything is, like cyber's the best way to do that now. You used to have to do it. You used to have to send spies out into, like a trench coat, like walking around mapping stuff. And you don't really need to do that anymore.
Yeah. So after the Army, you were with Booz Allen for a little while too?
After the Army, I went to Booz Allen for 11 years. I went there I thought I was just going to go there for a little bit of time, but had a great leadership team there, had a great experience, and they really it was like as entrepreneurial as you could kind of get at a place like Booz Allen, like kind of build my own business. And I built out a big chunk of the cyber business there, focused on building out cyber programs at mostly intelligence agencies, big focus at the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is like the DoD's CIA, to build out their cyber portfolio. Some of it was cyber support to counterintelligence efforts, catching spies and things like that using cyber. And then some of it was writing reports for decision makers in the Pentagon about cyber issues and the real science there was like writing it in a way that a general that knew nothing about cyber but actually
To
understood
make some
the problem.
decisions.
Right, make decisions. And then some of it was intel support to like tactical cyber operations and things like that. And then we had some interesting times at Booz Allen. We had Edward Snowden as an employee, and that was fun. And then we had he was actually kind of like on ours. I almost hired Edward Snowden, but his resume was so weird to me.
Right.
That I mean, it came across my desk, and this was before anybody could ever obviously did.
Yeah. He's just a contractor.
He's just a contractor. Yeah, and somebody was, and I was like, this guy, like, he works at the CIA, but he never graduated college, and he does all this stuff. And like at that time, that was very rare. Like you didn't really have that level of a job doing what he supposedly did without having a college degree.
Yeah.
And that was literally for me. That's why I didn't hire him, because it didn't fit.
It smelled a little funny.
Yeah. And we had a million other people, but unfortunately, my friend, I almost just said his name, but I won't say it because I think he's out of. He hired him, and he lost. The whole team lost their security clearance just because, like, via association with the guy.
Yeah.
But anyways, then we anonymous attacked Booz Allen. That was fun, and then at the time we discovered that we weren't eating our own dog food at Booz Allen when it came to the cybersecurity stuff we were building for agencies. So we built an internal cybersecurity team that was much more robust than we had before. And we started selling military grade cyber commercially. And I moved over to the commercial team. So like building, military grade cyber programs for hedge funds and banks and things like that.
And all that experience gave you the confidence to jump into the sort of VC side of things?
To jump into the VC side, I actually met my main investor through that process. He was one of my potential last customers at Booz Allen, and instead of becoming a customer, we came up with the idea. He's a individual that runs a hedge fund. We came up with the idea to start a cybersecurity focused venture capital fund that just focused on the products that we were talking to him about that he needed for his own organization. I was like, well, there's more of those out there. There's this whole conference. This is RSA conference, all these other things. But there's a sea of these things, and let's find those things, the coolest things that are mapped to real world problems, and like invest in them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then you most recently became a father. How's that working out?
Most recently became a father. Yes, that was back in January. It's working out great. He's super cute. He's now at the stage where, get some rewards in the form of smiles and things like that. So it's a lot of fun.
Okay. I don't know if you want to say his name on the air, but Bruce and Heidi Potter last night told me there was a story behind the name. So.
Oh, yeah. My wife would kill me if I said his name. Cause
Yeah. Don't have to. Upset.
The name was born out of the fact that my wife was telling me that I was not participating in the naming process enough. And so we were walking around Paris on our baby moon, which is a thing you do now.
Okay.
And before you have the name.
I missed that one.
Yeah. So we're walking around Paris, and I had a few drinks, and I was like, vino and escargot. And it was just like being an asshole. And she was like getting even more mad at me. And so I clicked into the phase where I started like saying real words and names at this. Then I just started ideating through words. And I said a word that we didn't even know if it was a name. And we Googled it, and we found out that it was a real name. It was just a really old name.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I noticed you made a post about, life as a father and how you're busier than you've ever been, which was my experience as well.
Yeah.
I just noticed you didn't have your son's name in there.
Yeah, and I made sure he had sunglasses on. And I had my just OPSEC.
Yeah, good OPSEC. I'm all for it. I've been following you on social media for a little while. Obviously, you're an investor in LimaCharlie, so this is an important relationship. Right. But you have some opinions about things, and that's why I wanted to talk to you on the podcast. So I'd like to ask you some questions about some of the stuff you've been posting, and then some stuff that's happening at RSA, if that's
sure.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the items you posted that caught my attention was the idea of a dedicated cyber force as a separate military branch. It's almost been 2 decades since we've started talking about cyber as a fifth dimension of war. I think on the surface, this makes a lot of sense, and I just love to hear your thoughts on how that would work and how you see that.
Yeah, I mean, 2.5 decades after we've kind of been doing this, I was there at the ground floor, like I said, with this Army unit that first stood up. The Army now has its own cyber branch, but it still has, just use the Army, for example, but it still has all these other parts of the Army that are actively involved in doing cyber. And as a warfighting domain, you're talking about intelligence preparation in the battlefield and like the early reconnaissance of the next war.
Yeah.
Like it's happening right now. And unfortunately, there is no one part of the DoD that has the rose pinned on it to really like sort of say like, we're watching this
Right.
domain.
Right.
It's spread across so many different
Air Force has a big cyber component.
Air Force has a cyber component.
Navy.
Navy has a cyber component. And then you break that up into subcomponents of that. You have Special Operations Command has a cyber component. JSOC has a cyber component. Everybody has a cyber component. Everybody wants to be in cyber because it also brings budget.
Sure, yeah.
And so this is a crazy story. And I'm not sure if this happens anymore, but way back when we were doing like super secret cyber stuff, like way back when, we would have counterintelligence briefings about when we were going to a lab to test out our cyber stuff. Like one of the top threats was the other services in the U.S. military stealing our own technology because the Army wanted to keep the stuff the Army was developing. And it's like, how is this a collaborative way you get warfighting?
Yeah.
Like you're trying to keep stuff away from the other branches so that you control the coolest cyber weapon or the coolest thing. And I think to a certain extent that's still happening today. And that's why I think that all needs to be broken up. And sort of like when the Air Force split away from the Army years ago, or Space Force was created out of the Air Force most recently, you really have to focus on it. That's the reason why our military is so great, is like, if you divide it up by domain, then you can just be focused on that domain.
Right.
And I know cyber is different than every other domain because you can't touch it and feel it and all that stuff. But its importance is like immeasurable at this point. And I think it's the only way it really gets the focus that it really needs.
Yeah, and I think if you project forward what the next major conflicts are going to look like it's all going to be drones and, autonomous vehicles and stuff. And everything's going to have this cyber attack surface to it. So,
yeah, you have to. And you have to have a culture that's going to promote and retain cyber people. And that doesn't happen in the Marine Corps or the Army. And you still have to have like these height and weight standards, these physical fitness standards. I'm not saying you're going to have like a cyber army that's like fat and like all this other stuff. But it has to be a little bit different. Because I think it's just, if we're going to be successful there, look at what China's doing to it. It's like the number of people that have dedicated to cyber mission is, I don't know what the number is. Like, let's say it's like 30 to 1. 30 to, it might even be higher than that. Yeah. Like I was at some things this week where people were talking about it's like 200 to 1. Yeah. And I don't really know what that means, cyber person, but like people on keyboards, like actually launching, like doing cyber stuff.
Yeah. And they have a really great state apparatus for finding talent. Yeah. That's something I know they do really well, like all the exams in schools. And I know we have some version of that here, right. But like they're able to find the really smart people and they say, hey, you're doing cyber.
Right. Yeah. It's a matter of, they can be a cook or whatever. You have an aptitude for it. So come over and do this. And our HR system in the military is totally broken for that. Like, not to bash on the Army again on this, but the Army is great at killing people and breaking things. That's what it's built to do. But to do that, you have to maintain all your vehicles and keep them all tip-top shape. And you don't have like a mechanic that does that. It's like literally the people in the Army do maintain the real vehicles. Mm-hmm. There's mechanics that help and stuff. So in the Army, even if you're a cyber person, you spend a lot of time in the motor pool just maintaining your vehicles. Sure. And that's not a way to keep your proficiency. Right. It would be much better to have like a cyber force that didn't have vehicles, that basically was like task organized to the military as needed, whatever they need. We're a combined arms military anyways. Like the Army knows how to fight with the Navy. Yeah. The Navy knows how to fight with the Air Force. It would be no different, but it's, the ranks are the same. Salute all of the people. It's just needs to be more dedication to.
Yeah, that was sort of one of my other questions too, because, as I was saying earlier, like the future surface is going to be all cyber. So I almost see it as like a layer above all the other domains, right? Right.
Yeah, I think that's right. But, it's a food fight now for resources and things like that. Sure. But I don't know. I think there's more momentum for it than ever, and things are happening faster than ever right now. So who knows? They could like just pop out of nowhere.
Yeah, there's some tension in the world, and I think that's driving a lot of defense budgets. So another thing that you spoke about was battle control and maneuver control in cyber warfare. I don't have a military background, but the way you explained it sounded really interesting. So it's like, the long and short is battle control is around awareness, and then maneuver control is around agility and almost like a red teaming function. Is that sort of the right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have enough time to talk about it, but what it really comes down to is like decision point tactics, like really good. You got to have a plan in the military for everything you do. But like 9 times out of 10, like old Mike Tyson saying, like, when your plan goes to shit, you punch in the face.
Yeah. No plan survives first contact.
Right. That's on first contact. But in cyber, I think more important than ever, commanders and the people that are running cyber operations have to have the authority to exercise decision point tactics because things are going to change so fast. Mm-hmm. And they don't need, up until recently and to a certain extent still, some of the things we do in cyber domain are still treated to a certain extent like a nuclear weapon because they're afraid of taking out a foreign 911 system or a hospital by accident or something like that. And so it goes all the way back up to the presidential level and then back down again.
Oh, okay. Slow.
It's slow.
Yeah.
And so you need to give the authorities to the commanders that are doing cyber operations to when they see a decision, when they hit a decision point, to actually like pivot and do whatever it is they need to do. Maybe they need to go like gain access to new systems and things like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes that takes like, literally an act of Congress to do that. And you don't want a couple of 18-year-old privates in the Army like making these decisions making all these decisions. But it needs to be pushed down lower to like generals and colonels and stuff that run these things. Yeah. It doesn't need to be the president every single time we're doing that. Most people that will have no idea what most of this stuff is anyways.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's interesting. That reminds me a lot of, I was interested in Navy history and stuff like that. And England, one of the things that made them dominant in the era of tall ships was that the commanders on the ships were empowered to make those decisions. Because once battle started, it was all smoke and you couldn't see what was going on. Whereas Spain, had to adhere to these like very rigid structures of command and it made them useless once the fight started. So.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah. It's the nature of the battle now.
Yeah. Another thing that you had a strong opinion on was you argued that the government has become too dependent on contractors for roles that should be inherently governmental, especially in cyber mission space under Title 10 and Title 50. Can you unpack what you see as the core risks of this over-reliance and what a healthier balance between federal talent and industry support would look like?
Yeah, I mean, it starts with fixing the HR system for government because, I literally had somebody in here yesterday who joined the Navy Reserve as a direct commission. He's a CISO. I won't say where he's a CISO. He's a CISO, wanted to do like give back to his country, went through the direct commissioning program to go to the Navy. And he soon thereafter was called up to active duty in the Navy, which he was excited about. But the bank that he worked for as a CISO wasn't going to pay his salary anymore, and he wasn't going to be able to afford his house anymore. So he was like literally going to like go into foreclosure. Although the banks can't foreclose on somebody that's been called into the military, but they can the moment he comes back. And
you have that back debt, and all that stuff.
It's like, thank you for your service. You're losing your home. Yeah. So we have to come up with a way you could take awesome people like that want to go like wherever they are into the military, and it can't. A cyber force, for example, I don't think it can operate like some of these other military branches where you start at the bottom and move to the top and there's no way to get ejected in the middle. Yeah. There's got to be people that come in at mid-career in a cyber force, like a CISO from a company. Yeah. There's got to be a way to do that. And
in the cyber domain, there is exceptional talent.
There's exceptional talent.
Like there's people that I've met in my career that, were 20 other people in their effectiveness. And if you're able to attract one of those, you've got to be able to pay them right. And you don't want to start them at the bottom.
So it starts with fixing the HR system, which is like, right, Hank, you're going to fix the government's HR system. I don't know. We're making a lot of changes in the government right now. So why don't we make this one right now? Yeah. And it's sort of in line with what's happening right now in some ways, and other ways it's not, because there's a lot of like, hey, let's look to Silicon Valley to solve a lot of these problems. I think that's part of it. But I think the other part of it is, literally, there are parts of the federal government's Title 10 and Title 50 operations that they literally cannot function an operational wartime mission without contractors. And I just think that's wrong. I think
vulnerability.
It's a vulnerability. Yeah. What if this, why are we relying on a private sector to literally perform a wartime function? And they'll tell you that they're not doing that, but I'm here to tell you that they are doing that. There's contractors doing everything up until the point where somebody with Title 10 authority or Title 50 authority press the button, because they have to press the button. Title 10 is basically military operations. Title 50 is basically intelligence operations. Okay, yep. And some of these places don't have the talent to get to where it is they want to do and the cyber thing. that they have to have somebody from the outside do it until they press the button. And we got to fix that, because if a real war kicks off, you're going to have all kinds of things like contractors saying, "Hey, I can't deploy. I can't go to this thing. Like, I can't carry a gun." It's a vulnerability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've been vocal about the need for clear roles and accountability in government cyber operations. Given the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Noem's recent remarks at RSA outlining a shift in CISA's mission, so away from broad operational reach and towards a more enforcement-focused, infrastructure-centered model, what's your take on this new direction? Do you see it as a necessary course correction or a step back from the progress CISA's been making?
I'm optimistic that it's a necessary course correction, because I have not seen, it's hard to measure the effectiveness of CISA so far when there's still something like, it's cyber, right? So like the bad guy just has to be right.
Well,
yeah. But I personally believe is that CISA got too far away from its core mission of really protecting, take the CDM contract, the continuous data monitoring contract, which is supposed to protect the .gov domain. It's billions of dollars being funneled into federal contractors mostly, and that's, and the core government employees. And I there's nobody out there saying, I really feel like the .gov domain is super secure after billions of dollars flew into it.
Yeah.
And if you look at DHS as a whole, how did something that was born out of 9/11 and it's only essentially 24 years old now become so complex? Like, it's so complex. There's so many parts to it. I just think that we got to get back to saying, like, hey, look, we can't do everything. We can't have a government agency that's focused on finding what's real and what's fake and what's a lie. We got to just protect that. Like, let's start at the basics. Whatever we've been doing to protect the .gov, it's not working. So let's get back to just really being focused on that, because we can't do everything at the same time.
Right. All right. So in a recent RSA panel, leaders from DARPA, ARPI, and ARBH emphasized how AI and automation are becoming essential to defending America's highly fragmented critical infrastructure. So from healthcare to water systems to transportation. Given the scale and diversity of these sectors, what's your perspective on how the federal government should prioritize AI-driven cyber defense? And how do we ensure that these technologies are deployed responsibly and effectively across such a complex landscape? So I think this is like a question across the whole industry, but we'll focus on the government.
On how the government should deploy AI.
Yeah.
Is it like a it sounds scary kind of thing?
The talk basically outlining like how fragmented a lot of our critical infrastructure is, and everybody's using different operating systems and different companies managing it, and it's all fragmented. One of the solutions proposed is that we use AI to sort of magnify the capability, and there's a lot of pressure to roll it out fast, but then there's also the other side of that saying we don't understand this stuff really well yet. Yeah,
I mean, look at all these companies doing like IT, OT, security, that there's a whole separate subcategory of cybersecurity around that, because like factories and SCADA systems are so proprietary that they're not running Microsoft, so they can't use all the other widgets that are on SAFR. So I guess the kind of what you're saying is the concept is like, if AI were to come in to help solve that problem, they could help figure it out a lot faster and defend a lot of things. And the complexity, maybe a little bit of like so much of our critical infrastructure lives in the private sector. Mm-hmm. And if it, is that a little bit of a question maybe? And how would government sponsored AI systems?
Yeah, like how can the government play a role, because this is critical infrastructure for the country, but it's all very fragmented and all these different operators. There's pressure to use AI to come in and help bring some sanity to this, but there's also some pushback because the technology's, I don't think, very well understood and secure in a lot of ways yet.
Yeah, we have to come up. It's like the answer to my last question. We have to come up with a better way of having, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA. Like, that's not just infrastructure in the federal government. That's infrastructure in the private sector as well. It's like literally been deemed critical infrastructure by like an act of government. You know, they've categorized these things. They said that they're critical infrastructure. I think that it seems like AI would, there has to be more legislation put in place to say that these, especially those parts of our society, play nice with government. Like the libertarian side of me to say like, oh, Hank, that's a terrible idea. But what's a more terrible idea is what's going to happen to us if those
having all the lights go out.
Yeah, having all the lights go out. And so like we saw it happen during the pandemic, and I think that took a lot of the like libertarian out of me to say like when people were just kind of like doing whatever they want, and you had to have some sort of like command and control over these things.
Yeah.
And but it's not to say that they have to share everything with the government. It just has to be brought into I mean, honestly, it'd be a lot. What DHS was kind of doing before in that realm was, they had like DHS representatives in every state, and they were liaison officers to the critical and liaison officers, but not actually doing anything. We'll just like share information back and forth.
Yeah.
So like, why not try AI to help solve the problem?
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what that means, but let's throw AI at it.
Yeah, let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a startup guy, so I'm all for that.
Yeah, startup. Yeah.
So this one's for some of our listeners who are thinking about maybe starting their own cybersecurity company. Do you have any advice for them on where they should be, like stage-wise, and how they should approach investors in this space when they're looking to raise their first round?
Oh my gosh, I have so many thoughts about this. Something I tell people a lot is, we meet a lot of founders, and they'll say, they'll want to raise like super early, say, I'm going to raise before you even have, like, why do you expect us to invest in something you don't have really anything?
Yeah.
And that's fine. Like if they can find somebody that wants to do that, great. But put some sweat equity into what you're building, and have a little bit more runtime.
A few customers.
Yeah. Like it's much better for you as well, because like you
don't have to sell as much to the company.
Yeah. You have to sell as much to the company. We're taking less risk. It's going to be like a better relationship at the get-go, because once you have a few customers, it's a lot easier to go from 2 to 4. It's much harder to go from 0 to 1.
Right.
And founders have like received that pretty well recently. And I told them that, like, I've had a few come back to me like a year later and say like, you're right. Like, I don't know what I was doing. Like, I just needed to like basically eat ramen and be poor for a year and like just do this.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that advice. Or, there's been a few that I've regretted because I've like said that, and then again went and raised from somebody else, and they're like,
you're on the way out.
Yeah. So, and they come back to me too as well. Like, I interviewed Andrew Morris from Gradeways last year, and the whole premise of my like sort of interview with him was like, why did he reject me as an investor? Because I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
And he's a funny guy, so he was like, basically laid out why he rejected me as an investor.
Oh, that's funny. I'll show you. I've got my Gradeways socks from the show floor today.
Yeah, it's good. Cool dog.
Yeah, no, Andrew's great too. A lot of energy.
Yeah, a lot of energy.
Yeah. Cool. And this is the last one I have for you. It's the one I asked of everybody that comes onto the show. It could be as wide or as narrow as you want. Do you have any predictions for the future of cybersecurity?
Predictions for the future of cybersecurity. I mean, I've been saying this for years now around consolidation, but I've heard it. I've been saying without having evidence of it, but I met with more CISOs in the last week that they're trying to go from 150, 200 vendors to 50 or 60 vendors, and hiring people that are dedicated people on their teams to really just look at their security stack and say like, what are we using all this stuff for? Like people with like, that's like a new role.
Yeah. Are we using everything to its full capacity? Do we need this tool? Like all that stuff.
Right. Yeah. So people that are like, where I've talked to a CISO, they're like, hey, don't talk to me. Talk to this other guy who's like evaluating the stack right now. And I get it because, I think there's a lot of orphaned security companies in there. When there's a lot of duplication of effort and stuff like that. So there's going to be a lot of, consolidation, here in the near term. There's some like companies that, kind of get long in the tooth that have to figure out what their next move is going to be.
Right.
So that's a prediction about like the business side of things. It'd be too easy to say like AI is going to solve all the problems here. But I think we're going to see like some like serious global, geopolitical moves that involve cyber on like a threat side of things that are going to put the importance of cybersecurity on an even higher pedestal in the next 12 months or something like that. Because it's just
12 months, yikes. Yeah. I think I'm anxiety level right now.
That's what keeps me up at night.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're busy at RSA. It's like all meetings, I bet.
No, it was great catching up, and I'm glad my voice hung out for them.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yep.